So when you think about your role on the school board, what does society think you do? What do your friends think you do? And what do you actually do?
Society, number one, they think I get paid and I don't. So what I do is out of the kindness of my heart, out of my love and my passion for the community, it's volunteer. But they also think that I control every little decision. They think that I can help them to get hired. And so that's, kind of a misunderstanding on their part. And I plan to work better to get them to understand what school boards actually do. My friends are dope, actually. So they think that I'm saving the world. And I appreciate that. I love that energy and those positive vibes. And so what I actually do, I'm actually on the school board to be the eyes and the ears of the community. I'm there to listen to what policies are being proposed, how our dollars are planning to be spent, and think about how that's going to have an effect on our students. Because what I don't want to happen is anything to be passed or to go through that is actually going to make life harder for our students, especially those who are marginalized and might be struggling with different things. So my main job on the school board is to make sure that anything that comes through, anything that is passed, is actually helping our students rather than hurting them.
Well, society, to Corinne's point, they think that you are paid. They think you are like a lap of luxury, and that is not the case. In the state of Arizona, school board members are not compensated. It is considered a volunteer position, but I consider it a full-time position that has a return on investment. And that investment of my time will be global citizens of our community. My friends, they're amazing. They do think I'm the queen of the world. They be like, girl, you are just really like making a big difference in this little district. And I'm like, well, I don't think of it as a little district when you serve over 2,500 students. Again, back to that return on that investment. And what do I really do? I put it all on the line. I hold myself accountable to be the best of the best, to really make sure that I fully and critically understand what are the items that are before me, and also have that fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers, and also to make sure that there is accountability of not only our spending, but also our actions and behaviors and how they are perceived by our families and community. And policy, of course, we can't forget policy and everything else it is that we add. But we are here to be stewards, public servants and stewards of the district. So I consider myself a steward.
So echoing the other fellow school board members, society thinks we just make all the decisions for our school district. If there's an issue, we're the ones who fix everything. It's our fault why everything is the way it is, and that we're just end all be all. They understand that there's power there. They're just not sure exactly how that power is really used. Same with everyone else. My friends, they think that I am like a state senator, and I'm like, oh, I'm on school board maybe one day, but yeah, just school board. But you appreciate that energy because doing this work, and it is volunteer, you need all the support you can get because it is the most thankless work that we probably do. And then just what I really do is I ran for office because I wanted to represent people. I wanted to be accessible. I wanted people to feel like, you know what, I don't like this about my school, but I'm gonna call Ashley and see what we can do about it. I feel that school board members, like Chanel said, we are stewards. So we are here to serve the people that we represent. And so we decide to take these roles because we've put ourselves in a position to be that change maker. And so if we're the ones that can be the leaders to educate and support our community so that they can make the best decisions for their own kids that parents and guardians have to advocate for, that's what we should be here to do, and support our constituents, the people that put us there.
My hope is that as people continue to engage with XQ Institute and watch this, they feel encouraged to say, okay, I can go and run because it's everybody's responsibility to change the world for our babies. So I hope that we encourage people as they go there, but we don't want to scare them away. So tell us, how many hours do you think you spend? You can do a week or a month serving on the school board.
I'm going to say at least 20 hours. And I know that's crazy. I know it's unbounceable, but the only reason is that, again, it's a whole bunch of different levels. And as the years go by, you'll find different sweet spots or different things that you master. And then you find out there's more. So, you can put that 20 hours in. But again, if you have a strong network that's teaching you and understanding your role and the full scope of what you have power and authority over, that will make it a lot more easier. And you can really, really focus and narrow down what does that vision and strategic plan look like in your district.
I spent 10 to 15 hours a month. We meet twice a month for our board. But again, like what Chanel said, I think, once you step into these roles, we can throw these numbers on to how many hours a month. But once you're a school board director, you are always a school board director, no matter where you go. That hat is always on.
And Ashley, real quick, can you tell us the difference in a school board director? Is that similar to a chair, or what? How does that look like for your district?
Honestly, I think it's just the title. For board members in Pennsylvania, they are all listed as school board directors. We're each an individual director.
Got you. Thank you. Okay. And Corinne, you told us you didn't get paid. So how many hours do you give volunteering?
So I'm about 10 to 15 per month as well. So we only meet once a month. So that's the one like in-person meeting. And then we get board packets every Friday. So we can see all of the details, everything that's going on with the district. And then there'll be like events here or there, dance recital at this school, arts night over here. And we have 10 buildings. So, I would say between 10 to 15 hours per month. And again, to echo what Ashley said, there's also like, 10 or 20 minutes here where somebody sees you and you're like, hey, Corinne, I heard this was going on at the school, or how about that? You never take that hat off, but it's serving my community, so I'm okay with it.
That's awesome. You're always on. That is one thing. You are always on, regardless if you're currently serving or not. They know you and they want you to fix what's going on with their baby and their baby only. And so when we think about elevating your voice as a board and advocating for those babies and the scholars in your district, how do you work with your state level? I know a lot of times, especially in this fiscal year where you're in the budget season, there's a lot of advocating and a lot of requesting the resources for just bare minimum. We need more. We need more of what we need in our school system. So what's your process with advocating for at the state level with your representatives?
Yeah, so we're invited to some state representatives. They have an education committee, so they will invite in educators to talk about specific bills that's going to help our children advance. There's also the state association. Each state has a school boards association. We also the board completes a list of legislative or political priorities. And we also have our own bullhorn where we go down to the Arizona State Legislature. We sign up for the request to speak. We can do it online or we can do it in person. But there's a continual advocacy, and hopefully you have leadership in your school district that belongs to the Superintendent's Association. Hopefully your business manager belongs to his business manager group that is lobbying for those more finance dollars, but also to change the funding formula. That's what we're looking for particularly. So build those relationships with your elected officials and your state representatives to help them understand the greater need.
So I love everything that Chanel said, right? So there's different levels. We can advocate locally with our legislators. We go up to our state's capital. But one thing that I think is really important and kind of outside of some of the things I already mentioned is being connected to organizations and groups. So here in New York State, I am the regional director for where I live here in Binghamton for the New York State Caucus of Black School Board Members. And it was through connections with people in different organizations like that that helped me to understand what our power actually was and helped to galvanize us together to move forward agendas. So that's also important.
We all are saying everything we need to do for amplifying voices. I think the only thing that I would really want to add is just showing up. For us specifically in our district, I mentioned we have a partnership with our neighboring public school, and that was a big push that had to be worked on with our state legislators, because that also involved additional funding that we would need to actually make that happen. And so I think when you show up and you're present to places where your state legislators should be doing things in your community too. So you got to make yourself seen and present. So when it is time to ask those questions, it's not well, who is that? Or I don't see that person. If you're there all the time, they have to see you, because I'm here and I'm not going to be quiet, and we're going to have a conversation, and you just keep it moving.
So it's quite interesting to see that there's a theme literally across the nation when it comes to public education. We're in New York, we're in Pennsylvania, and we are in Arizona. And we talked about the funding and the funding formula. I know I'm in Tennessee, and that is the funding formula. Education is one of the most convoluted, most like just confusing formula, and yet we still aren't fully funded.
Well, I'm thinking about like the IDA funding, right? And I hear from my teacher of director of student services, and they are speaking to, hey, our special needs children need more. What means a lot to me is when I have parents and families in my community who have a child with special needs, I don't want them to take them out of the public school system because they feel like they don't have enough supports to help them match their peers in terms of comprehension. IDA funding is one of those funding sources. I'm also going to say more investment into school counselors. Again, a lot of our students are suffering from adverse childhood experiences and traumas, and they need those additional supports in place. But guess what? I'm also going to say, I'm going to turn it back to the governing board when we talk about checks and balances and accountability. How are we maximizing our budget to really help meet those needs? When is the last time that we've done a reorganization so that we can scale back and not be so top heavy in our administration, but also be so supportive to our teachers in the classroom and also the teaching and learning in the classroom?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for adding to that. And as you see, audience, we have advocates here on the panel, as you can just see by their responses. So share with us a time where you had to boss up and use your voice on an issue to where, like Ashley said, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to speak to the issues, and we're going to advocate for our scholars and do what's right by them.
A few years ago in my district, there was an instance where some students had communicated that, something happened to them that they didn't feel was appropriate or correct. And then the parent followed up and the documentation didn't seem appropriate or correct or really well documented. So my school district decided to do an investigation, and they kind of came to some findings. The community at large disagreed with their findings. And I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know where I landed, but other people in the community started a kind of a negative campaign against these young people, these 4 girls. And so I just had to make a statement and just be very clear that racism does exist. I experienced it myself going through this school district, and that I needed more answers, and I needed more people to be open-minded and really look into the situation. So after I released my statement, I was asked to take it down, which I did. But once I released it, the governor of New York State got hold of it, and we had a New York State investigator come in and look at the situation. So it was an instance where the community was very divided. As usual, students of color, students who are more marginalized, didn't have as much of resources or advocates or things like that. And so I just used my voice to say, well, hey, I don't really know. Let's look into this more before we jump to any conclusions. And additional resources were sent. And so I'm really appreciative of that. There has been backlash in the community, but I am totally okay with that, because when it comes to our students, I need to get to the bottom of it. I need all possible resources that we have thrown to that to make sure that they are safe, okay, and they're able to learn, because that's what it's about.
It's like 2 big instances where I had to boss up. So the first one had to do with my first board resolution. Once again, because I belong to these national networks that teach me how to be strong, and we swap and share language. This was around 2016, you all, when we were going through the presidential election, and there was so much rhetoric. And again, our community is immigrant, refugee, richly diverse, and we did not want our families to feel like they were being targeted. So the anti-hate resolution, that was my first board resolution. It was not as strong as I wanted it to be, but I really, really had to stand up for it, because this board was not used to adopting resolutions. They were not used to reinforcing their values or being able to address those current events that directly impact those in which we serve. Most recently, 2 nights ago, we passed a Black Lives Matter resolution. This was so critically important. This wasn't necessarily, I would say, prompted, by other, statements. What it was about, again, reaffirming our values and our love need. But guess what? Also pulling back the veil to look at what are we doing as a school system? Are we adding to this negative trend, or are we doing something new and innovative? And what I really love about it is that this is direction and guidance that will be in place beyond my tenure. When you're on a school board and you are passing policy and language, you need to make sure that it is implemented not only in a strategic plan, but that it's even introduced so there could be some type of guiding source for the board for years to come. So that was a really important thing that I really had to stand up for, but I am proud to say that it passed unanimously and that we are going to circle back in 30 days and really put a plan together and hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we're doing everything. But make no mistake, we will not be able to do this without having a competent new superintendent.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. We're doing the work. You're advocates. You're standing up for what's right. You're standing up for our young people, especially marginalized population.